This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, this is Mary Lou from the Mercer County Library's Lawrence branch, and welcome to our Family History Online class. In this class, I will share some tips on getting started, finding resources in the library and online, and explore some websites that you might find helpful. Remember, because this is being recorded, you can always view it again later and then pause, go back for something that you may have missed. I would like to also encourage you to go to our library's YouTube channel to check out the series that we have recorded on family history, using the library and the internet in your family history research. The series is broken up into 7 parts that will give you more information on some of the topics that we're just going to introduce today. Okay, so we're going to just take a quick look at a few things that we are going to be doing today. So starting your family research, knowing where to begin. Once you start to begin gathering your information and how to keep track of your records. So we'll touch on those. Where should you go next once you start getting that information? And then we will take a look at Ancestry Library and Heritage Quest, which are 2 of the databases that are available through the library. And we'll also take a look at some online resources. Now, when you are getting started, one thing that you have to realize is that you're about to embark on a very personal journey, your own treasure hunt, so to speak. No one way is going to be the perfect way for everyone. Everyone is going to do this very personally. No best way, no one way to do things, but trust me, it is going to be a fantastic journey no matter what way you do it and no matter what you find. Okay, to start your research, you're going to need some jumping off points, and one of the best ways to get started is some interviews with family members. So take advantage of interviewing family members while you still have them with you. There's a lot of family interview questions available online that you might want to check out. And also family stories and anecdotes that you've heard over the years. These might also give you some nice pieces of information that you can weave together. Now, many people save things. My mother was like this. She saved all kinds of things. I still am going through loads of things that she left behind. She saved everything. So if you have someone who was like that and saved things, you may find some information that is really going to be helpful to you in doing your research. Any type of papers or wills that people have put aside, deeds, certificates of birth, death, any religious ceremonies, insurance papers, always check these for pieces of information that might be helpful in your research. As far as family pictures go, even though most of us save our pictures digitally now, do be sure to make sure that you take time to note who's in the picture, where it was taken, when it was taken, that type of thing, because many of us have containers full of pictures, of printed pictures, and most of the time they have no identifying information on the back. So trying to put that together, this can be a treasure hunt on its own. When you look at family pictures and you're trying to match things up, try to look at the backgrounds, try to look at things that are in the pictures besides just the people. Try matching up time periods, for example, by looking at clothes and cars. Backgrounds could tell you locations that might be the same or similar that might be helpful. Also try to look for people that may repeat in different pictures, if there are group pictures especially, because you might have family members or close friends that you may be able to identify at some point. And, you know, in the not too distant future, we're all going to be able to use facial recognition technology anyway to help in matching all of these people up. So that's coming. With old letters and postcards, if you have anything like that, this can be helpful in determining dates and addresses, and that information can be helpful when you're looking through census records. You might also find some unexpected information in letters. For example, I learned my grandfather's cause of death by seeing a letter that my mother had saved from an insurance company. Okay, as far as birth and wedding announcements are concerned, okay, these can help with family connections, parents, full names of children, locations, maiden names versus married names of female relatives, and so forth. Okay, as far as newspaper clippings go, when I'm talking about newspaper clippings, I'm talking about something that someone has actually physically cut out of a newspaper and saved. But many newspapers do have archives, and so that's worth checking out. A lot of them are available online, and there are others available through sources such as Ancestry and other databases. Articles that you may find in newspapers may be about very happy events such as weddings or graduations, births, and so forth, other social events. My grandmother used to help plan dinners for the ladies auxiliary of the local fire company, and she and my mother collected articles about the dinners and also about wedding and baby showers. And these articles listed everybody in attendance. They listed things like who helped plan the event, to decorate, to cook, gifts that were received, and so forth. So a lot of minutia, but it's that type of thing that is going to help you with your research. So don't discount any of those little tiny pieces of information. You might also find articles about things that are not so happy, accidents, natural disasters, lawsuits, and so forth, and even some things that you may not want to discover about your family. You just never know what you're going to find. Okay, as far as obituaries are concerned, when newspapers did not charge for obituaries line by line, people tended to put in a lot more information. So you might find names of birthplaces, country of origin, immigration dates, family members, age, and if you have the age, you can therefore figure out the date of birth. But now, because they do charge, you sometimes don't even find obituaries in the newspaper. Sometimes you'll only find a little announcement that was done as a sort of a death announcement, and you may find something, if you're lucky, online, but not necessarily in the physical newspaper. When we're talking about memorial cards, these are typically given out by the funeral home at a funeral, and it would have the name of the funeral home. It would also have the date of death. Sometimes it will have the date of the burial. It might also have the date of birth, if you're lucky, and sometimes it will also list the cemetery. So those might be helpful as well. The memorial books that I'm referring to are like a guest book that you see at a funeral. People will sign in to let you know that they were there. And sometimes, in addition to just putting their name, some people will add their addresses. Now, if it's an older book, it may not be a current address, but you don't care about that because you're going to be using that information to go back into census records, which are older anyway. So those addresses might be helpful to you in the long run. Now, if you can find out where people are buried and actually visit the cemetery, that would be great. If not, there are websites available, and we will be visiting one of them today, that can help you out with this. If you do visit a cemetery, be sure to take pictures of the gravestones or markers for your records, and also be sure to check both sides of the stone as well as surrounding graves as well, because sometimes you will find nearby graves happen to be from other members of the family or extended family. When you're looking at those stones, in addition to names, look for date of birth, date of death, maiden name, and any inscriptions or carvings that might tell you more about that person. You know, people got creative at different times, and sometimes they were not just the typical kinds of inscriptions or decorations that you might find on gravestones. Okay, with your record keeping and your organization, again, as I said before, this is a very unique journey. Everybody has their very personal way of looking at things, and you're going to do the same thing with your organization and how you keep track of things. If we were to go through different ways of organizing and doing it, everybody would come up with a different way of doing it because it has to work for you. So first of all, I would really recommend that you designate an area to keep your research. This is a kind of hobby, obsession, whatever you want to call it, that it can take over a lot of space if you let it. So try to designate a spot where you're going to keep track of everything and keep it kind of contained so that you don't um, overstep your boundaries of where you would like to have all of your things. Um, File folders, plastic sheet protectors, and pockets, all of these are going to be helpful in your organization. Um, with a lot of things that you're going to have, if you do keep physical pieces of documentation, the little clippings, the little cards from a funeral and so forth. Some of these are small. They're not going to stay in file folders, typical file folders, because those are open on the sides. So you're going to want something with pockets to have for those little things, or you might want to have some kind of sheet protectors. Now that there are different types of sheet protectors available if you go to Staples or somewhere like that. And some of them will actually have little pockets in them where you can put cards or smaller items in those small sections. Um, Traditional plastic sheet protectors are letter size. And for those, I would recommend that you make sure that they are archival quality, that it says that on the package. By having archival quality sheet protectors, it means that the ink will not transfer to the plastic from your document. And also there is some UV protection in there. So that's something that you do want to keep in mind. Okay, keeping your papers in order, as I said, this is very personal. What works for you may not work for me. You might want to do things color coded by family. You might want to have things alphabetized. This is a time when, if you're really stuck in how to do it, this is when going to some of the tutorials that are out there would help you. There are lots of tutorials on how to organize your information, and I would mention a few of them just quickly. National Archives has information on that. Ancestry has information on it, and also if you just go to YouTube or Google it, you're going to find some things there. And lots of people have podcasts and blogs out there that have great ideas for you. So there's loads and loads of places to look. Yeah, I would strongly recommend putting a timeline together as you start finding information. This is going to help you to keep events in order, but it's also going to help you as you go through and find other things that you might want to add to your research. And this is important because as you find information on people, you're going to find that there may be a number of people with the same first and last name. and you need to know whether or not the one that you're finding is who you're actually looking for. I had an occasion when this happened to me. I didn't have my timeline with me for the particular person. We were doing some investigating at one of the local cemeteries, and I thought for sure that I had found my husband's grandfather, and took all kinds of pictures of the stone and was really, all excited that we'd found it. And I got home and I looked at my records and found out it was a completely different person. So, the timeline didn't match up. So that was a case where having the timeline was helpful, but it would have been helpful if I had had it with me, I guess, so that I didn't spend time taking pictures. A family tree record. Now you see this little stylized family tree up to the right here. That this one. You see this one right here. This is something that you might do as a decorative piece. It's not what we would consider functional when you're doing your family tree. What is going to be more functional for that is something that looks more like your NCAA brackets, which, hang on, there we go. Okay, more like this. So this is what the family tree would look like if you were trying to do something that is going to be more helpful. Now, uh, you can make family trees with a lot of different services that are online. We will take a look at Family Search today, which does allow you to do a free family tree. So I will show you one that I've started putting together so that you can just see what it looks like. But this would be more helpful than the fancy tree that you have up toward the top of the page here. Family record sheets are going to help you to organize information by family. It allows you to put in information for a family grouping so that you have, parents, and you have um, husband and wife, and you have siblings, and you have children, and so forth, so that you can then connect those to each other, and you have the information organized in one place. It's just an overall help. Record keeping online is available through some of the services. If you subscribe to Ancestry.com, which is a paid service, you can keep your records there, including your family tree record, and things that you find online, records that you find, you can keep them stored within Ancestry.com. We're going to be looking at Ancestry Library today, which is a little bit different, but we'll talk about that when we get to it, so that you can see what the differences are. But record keeping online is available with some free services as well. When we talked about Family Search, that is one of the free services, and you can keep some of your records there. Okay, so once you start finding some background information, trying to figure out what you're going to do, you've figured out how you're going to organize things and so forth. Library resources are going to be great. You have books, newspapers, digital media there. We have some database programs such as Ancestry Library and Heritage Quest. We'll take a look at those today. Online resources, you have lots of websites and search engines to help. Okay, and then we have our census records. Now, census records are taken every 10 years. The United States does it every 10-year census, and our most recent census was in 2020, just last year. There is a 72-year law in place as far as the release of census information goes. This was enacted to protect the privacy of individuals so that your personal information was not released during your life while you were still alive. No definite answer as to why they picked 72, but it is thought that that was the life expectancy at the time that this law was enacted. So that may be the reason, we're not sure. Census records can give a lot of information on family members, location, ages, family background, occupations, and more. Now, some states also had census records in the in-between years. For example, New Jersey has some records available for 5 years in between the federal census records. County courthouses, state archives, national archives, these all hold vital records that you might be able to access. County courthouses in New Jersey, it's kind of varied as far as whether or not they have the records at the county courthouse or if they have sent them on to the state archives to be held there. So it does vary from county to county, so you would have to check on that. The state archives are very accessible as well. The county courthouse, you can go in when it's a time when people can visit things like that. I would call courthouse, state archives, whichever, and find out whether or not they're allowing people in at this point. And if not, they would be able to help you with requests. They do take requests. They do charge if you need for them to do the research in the state archives. There is also a charge if you need things printed out. But when the state archives is open, you can go there and you can look for information yourself. The people that work there are extremely helpful. Okay, National Archives is located in Washington, D.C., but there are satellite locations available. So I would encourage you to check their website for a lot of other information as well. I mentioned the tutorials. So they have a lot of information on their website about genealogy and family research in addition to the records themselves. And once again, I would encourage you to check out our YouTube series. We'll keep going back to that throughout class today. There we go. Okay, so moving on to the library, some things that you can expect to have help with from the library. First of all, are reference librarians. Make sure that you let the reference librarians know that you are doing your family research and that you are starting it or you're working on it. And a lot of times they will be able to point you in the direction that you need to go as far as finding resources and so forth. But you can find lots of print resources, digital resources there, and also special collections. Now at the library, at the Lawrence branch of Mercer County Library System, we have two special collections in particular that I wanted to mention. One is the Lawrence Room, the Lawrence Collection. And the Lawrence Collection is maintained by the Lawrence Historical Society. It is by appointment only, so you would have to call about that. Open to everyone is our New Jersey room. The New Jersey room has, as it states, information and materials from throughout New Jersey. So not just local, but throughout the state. Either of those would be a good source for you if you needed to look some things up. Also, regarding special collections, this is going to vary from one library to another. Local collections are going to be handled differently from one library to another. And one that I would want to mention in particular is the Trenton Library, Trenton Public Library. They have the Trentoniana collection. And if you haven't been there to explore that, it is something worth going to see. They have an entire level devoted just to this. And it includes things like history and also lots of city directories and lots of articles and newspaper clippings and everything. And it isn't just Trenton proper, but Trenton and the surrounding areas, because prior to Lawrence being Lawrence and Ewing being Ewing and so forth, we were all part of Trenton. So Trenton was very expansive, and then everything broke off into the smaller townships. So Trenton, as far as the Trentoniana collection is concerned, is a lot of Mercer County. So do give that a try. Now, also we have databases that are available, such as I mentioned Ancestry Library and Heritage Quest. We're going to take a look at those. And then I did want to just note the interlibrary loan program that we have available. And a lot of libraries subscribe to this because it is a very good feature. If you don't have access to something at your own library or your own library system, it is available through the interlibrary loan program. We have 9 branches within the Mercer County Library System. So if there's something at a different branch, we can just, send for it and get it back and forth, and there's no problem. But when something is somewhere else, let's say in another state, halfway across the country, whatever, and you found that this is something that you need for your research, it is available through the Interlibrary Loan Program. I'll use myself as an example again. My father was raised in Chicago. I found things at the Chicago Public Library that would be helpful to me. So I requested those books through Interlibrary Loan, and I was able to borrow them without having to go to Chicago. So there we are. So that was helpful. Okay, as far as digital databases and digital resources are concerned, as I mentioned, we have Heritage Quest, and this is available for use anywhere. You do need a library card. You do need to have your barcode in order to use this. Ancestry Library is the library edition of Ancestry.com, and it's available for use in the library only. This is special remote access until June 30th. They keep renewing this. It's been going a few months at a time that they grant the remote access, and then um, they continue it. So we'll see how that goes. Generally, Ancestry Library is only available when you are working in the library itself. Heritage Quest is available anywhere, anytime. Now, I did do some checking on this, and I did find that the in addition to Mercer County Library, Ancestry Library is available at Princeton. It's also available for Bucks County Libraries and Hamilton. This is through the state library, so I would ask you to just check to make sure that that extension of remote access applies. I don't think it differs from library to library, but just check with your reference department just to make sure. Also, I did check on Heritage Quest. Heritage Quest seems to be available everywhere. So all of the libraries that I checked locally all have Heritage Quest. So do check on that. And even the ones that I didn't mention as far as Ancestry Library, check anyway, because it's very possible I could have missed it or it could have been added since I checked. So do check on that. Ancestry Library is the library edition of Ancestry.com, and I'll mention that again in just a few moments when I tell you a little bit more about it. But it is like a scaled down version of Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com, again, is a paid subscription. So again, you are going to get more bells and whistles with that because you're paying for it. So having a free version of it that you are able to use and use for most purposes is going to still be very helpful to you. Okay, check for history-related databases as well. And there is we'll see that when we go to the library's website, but there is a blog in particular that I do want to call your attention to, and I did not note this in any of the handouts that I am going to be sending you, so you might want to just jot down the date. February 7th, 2020, there was a good blog related to this on history related databases. So you might just want to jot that down. It is in our Mercer County Library blog. Okay, also remember to check our virtual branch. We have Hoopla, we have eLibrary NJ, we have Libby, and we also have our Mercer County Library's YouTube channel. And all of these have things available that are related to family history and genealogy. So I would encourage you to check on all of those. Okay, so things you can expect to find online when you're using the internet. We can find dates for lots of things, events, births, deaths, baptisms, marriages, just for example. Passenger records for ships. Lots of locations where you can find these, including the Ancestry Library and Ancestry.com, Heritage Quest, ellisisland.org. So different places are going to allow you to get this information from ships' manifests. Okay, you'll find registrations for citizenship, registrations for the draft, and for the draft going back to World War I, World War II, and so forth. There's also, you're going to find um, declarations of intent for citizenship, which means before someone was actually granted citizenship, they had to sign a declaration that they intended to become citizens. And as far as the draft is concerned, there's also something, if you find a relative that seems to be too old to be drafted at the time that you are looking at it, like for World War II, and the person was in his 60s and they are still getting a draft card. There was something that they called an old person's draft or an old man's draft. So they still had them on record, even though they weren't actually going to be drafted to go into the Army, they still had them fill out the record keeping. So it still may show up. Pictures, blogs, message boards, these are very subjective. People actually have to include those or add them to a website in order for them to be there. So if you were lucky enough to have someone who, distantly, remotely related to you, put in something of pictures that were of someone that was in your family, or wrote a blog and mentioned someone in your family, then you might be lucky enough to find that. Message boards tend to be question answer kind of things. If someone had a question about, does anyone else, like if I'm doing a website about Polish ancestry and looking at that, they might have a message board and I might say, has anyone found information about Lysagora in the Galicia province? Then they might get back to me and give me information on that. So that might be helpful to me. Charts and maps are going to be available in a lot of different places. In addition to looking at something online just through a search engine, you can find these within the databases such as Ancestry and Heritage Quest, but you can also find them in Family Search and some other places as well. You're going to find lots of forms to help you organize your research. And again, this goes back to a lot of the different things being individualized and what's going to work for you. But you can always check out those forms, look at them. Most of them are free, and you can look at them, decide, is this going to work for me? Is it not going to work for me? Some of them are helpful. Some of them I found are a little bit too tedious to do all the record keeping on there. That's just me. But you have to see again what works for you. And again, you're going to find lots of tutorials, lots of tips, and lots of help. Okay, and basically you're going to find more information than you're ever going to be able to use. Okay, some of the things that you will find on the internet, because there are so many sites available, you're going to find that some are free and some are going to require a subscription. You will find that some sites are going to have links to other sites and other resources, and some sites will help find information and primary sources. Now, by a primary source, I'm talking about something that is the original. So for example, if you're looking up information on the census, you might find what's considered a transcription of a census record. In other words, someone looked at the census record, wrote down what they felt was important, and then you've got that as a transcription. Problem with that is you don't always get the correct information. So it's always, someone could have misunderstood someone's writing, someone could have recorded it incorrectly, whatever. So going back to the primary source, the original document, is always helpful. So make sure that you do that whenever it's available, even if it's just to double check that transcript. but you will be able to look at a lot of the original documentation through, again, Ancestry, Heritage Quest, Family Search. They will connect you to the primary source document. Okay, so taking a quick look at Ancestry Library. If you've worked with Ancestry.com at all, you know that this doesn't look too different from this. You will have across the top here, let me just do a couple of things here. Right across the top up here, you have a menu bar that's going to have a lot of jumping off places. So when we get to this live, we will take a look at that. And also you will have some other places, again, that are shortcuts to a lot of different things, to begin searching, to look at the census, to search vital records, military, immigration, and so forth. And there's even more than that. Up at the top, you'll notice that it says message boards. There's message boards that we mentioned earlier, charts and forms. There's the message boards, and we had charts and forms up here, which is where we also have some maps and things. And when they mention new collections, it's talking about things that they have recently added. And we'll take a look at that as well. Now, one other thing I wanted to just point out to you is I mentioned that Ancestry Library does not allow you to keep your records online. Ancestry.com, that's one of the things you're paying for. They will keep the records for you. For example, if you find something, you add it to your account, your shoebox, your folder, whatever they happen to call it. So you would keep it there so that you can go back and find those pieces of information that you found later when you want to look it up. However, Ancestry Library doesn't provide you with that. What they do provide you with is this right here where it says receive records at home. Receive records at home means that you can send whatever you find home to your email. So you can just email it back to yourself. So that way when you get home, or now you're going to be working home, but I mean basically it's sending it to your email. When you do that, you're going to be able to decide what to do with it. Do you want to, print it out? Do you want to save it somewhere? That's completely up to you. But that is an option that you have. Okay, Heritage Quest and Ancestry Library are both managed by ProQuest, and that service is connected to Ancestry, Ancestry.com. So all three of them, Ancestry.com, Ancestry Library, Heritage Quest, are all going to have a lot of things in common. They're all going to have things that are very similar. So the way that they work is going to be very similar. So once you get the hang of figuring out how to maneuver your way through and navigate your way through one of them, you'll be okay with the others as well. Notice that the menu bar at the top left over here does not seem to be quite as extensive as it was in Ancestry Library. Okay, so you won't have quite as many options. However, there will be a lot of other shortcuts. If I were to scroll down and when this is live, you'd see that there are a lot of other shortcuts, and a lot of these links within here that we have right in through here are going to also provide further links once you get there. We also have the search and the maps and research aids and so forth right there. So you do still have a lot of the features. So while Ancestry Library is available to you, I would suggest using that while that's available until June 30th. But then if that runs out, if they don't extend it again, you've still got Heritage Quest that you can go back to. And again, they're both going to be free. So that's always good. If you can get something that's free, that's always better than paying for it, right? Okay, okay, I think that's pretty much that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, this is Family Search, and Family Search is provided through the Church of Latter-day Saints. And this is one of the most extensive compilations of information regarding genealogy that anyone has. So Ancestry, Heritage Quest, everybody links back to this for some of the information. So this information is shared. Those websites are all considered friendly websites because they do share information with each other. Okay, now in order to best use Family Search, you do have to set up a free account, and you will see that it does tell you that right here, create a free account. Okay, so when you create a free account, it is going to ask you a few questions. You do have to set up your ID, password kind of information. Okay, so they're going to ask you that. And then once you have the free account, then you're just going to click where it says sign in. Okay, and you will be right into your account. It will keep you right in there. Okay, another website that you will find helpful is ellisisland.org, and Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty website does allow you to do passenger searches. And once again, just like with Family Search, you can get the most out of this if you do set up an account. Now, with Family Search and with Ellis Island, if you set up that account, you can save records. It won't save everything, but you will be able to save some of the information that you find. Um, Also with Family Search, one thing that I mentioned earlier, but I didn't mention it just a few minutes ago, is that you can set up that family tree, a free family tree through Family Search, and save it there. Okay, back to Ellis Island. Doing passenger searches, if you put in information that you have, it will provide you with a list of where that person might have arrived through Ellis Island, when they came, ship name, and dates and so forth. So with that said, okay, we will go a little bit further here. And just a little bit of background on Ellis Island, because it's really interesting. Prior to 1892, when Ellis Island opened for immigration, um, people were being received at a lot of different ports. So if it's prior to 1892 that you had an ancestor that came in, you may have a little bit more difficulty finding them, because you don't, unless you know exactly where they arrived. One of the sites that was being used in New York was Castle Garden, and you will see more about that as you do your research. But Ellis was operated until 1924, which was when the Immigration Act of 1924 imposed quotas. Once that happened, it ended the mass immigration that we had been having prior to that. You'll see that back in 1907, that was what they considered the peak year for immigration that came through Ellis Island. If you're looking for records that were between 1855 and 1897, and this includes some that were not necessarily from Ellis Island itself, but you will see that in 1897 there was a fire that destroyed a lot of the records that they did have. So because of that, you may have some difficulty finding detailed records for that time period. Okay, one of the things that you can do through the Ellis Island website is to find out information about the ship that your relative may have arrived on. And I found the Connigan Louise that you'll see down here, right here. And this is the ship that my grandfather arrived on. Um, I'm not sure that I'm saying that right as far as the pronunciation of the name, but he arrived on this ship uh, when he came from Poland. Okay, and I'll show you on the next page, we have his ship's manifest. Okay, here's his manifest, and it tells you that he left from the port of Bremen. Okay, and it was and they give the date and so forth. But right here where I have the arrow pointing, that was his name, Tomasz Kozala. And our family, for some reason, pronounced Kuczala. It's always been pronounced Kozola. Tomasz came over from Poland. He was 22 years old. He was a male and he was a laborer. And he came from the Galicia province in the town of Lisagora. And I think I have that right. And that was information that I got from this particular record, the ship's manifest. Now, when they transcribed this originally, this is why I said make sure you go back to the original if possible. When they first transcribed this, they had the town's name as Synagova, Synagova, and it was because of the stylized L that the person had made when they did this writing. I know it's difficult for you to see, but it is right here, and they interpreted that as Synagova. There's no such place. So when I did some more research, I found out that it was actually Lysagora. I did give them that information and they did make the change on the transcription. So a lot of websites, when you find something, if you find that it is an error, there is a way that you can report an error and it can be corrected. So Ellis Island was able to do that for me. Okay, now I'm going to show you an interesting connection that came about when I was doing some research, and it's always interesting to see how things relate to each other and connect to each other as you go through, because you will find a lot of connections, and you know, things do lead off into different tangents. It's sometimes difficult to stay on task, and this is something that I always have to tell myself, you know, you have to focus on what you're doing because it's so easy to get off task and to go in so many different directions. But anyway, Fold 3 is a website that is going to focus on military information. Okay, and it is connected to Ancestry. You will see right under the Fold 3 logo up at the top, it does say by Ancestry. So it is connected to Ancestry, managed through Ancestry. Some of the information you're going to find is free. However, there are some pieces of information that are going to be available only through Ancestry Library or .com. So you will need to go through them in order to get that. So I decided that I wanted to find information about my father, see if anything came up. He served in World War II. He was in the Navy. So in the area where it says type your search right here, I typed in Kuczala, which is right here. So that's the way my father always spelled his last name and pronounced it Kozola. Okay, so once again, this is where I wound up, and I typed in that piece of information one more time. And I didn't come up with my father, but I did come up with my uncle, my father's brother. So Casimir Gustav Kozola came up, and you'll notice that up at the top, he does have it spelled Kuczala. Okay, later on, my Uncle Gus changed the spelling so it was more phonetic. He changed it to Kuzola, and that was the spelling that a few of the brothers used. I found other information here, though. I found his wife's name, my Aunt Caroline, right here. Okay. Also, there was a date of birth right here. Okay, so there's different pieces of information. Um, we also had an address. Let me get that back. Right here, this address, 5640 South Throop Street in Chicago, Illinois. Okay, so this is the address where he was living when he um, had to fill out this record for selective service. This was his draft card, his registration card for the draft. Okay. Okay, now typing in Kuzola. Remember, I still haven't found my father. Okay, but I did find another brother, and this was Mickey, my uncle Mickey, Michael John Kuzola, Kuzola. But this one was not a draft card. This one was actually an application for a headstone or marker, a military marker, because he was killed during the war. He was involved here in the United States in a freak accident, a construction accident, and he was in a truck that overturned and he was killed. But still receiving military honors since he was in the military, and he he's this information was filled out by his wife in application for this marker. So if you see right here, it says, and his enlistment date is here and his date of discharge, and the date of discharge is his date of death. Okay, and then that matches here again, date of death right here. But also it does tell me the name of the cemetery. Here's the cemetery right here, as well as the area of the cemetery. 4-6-44 was the date that this was authorized, but he's at Resurrection Cemetery, and somewhere stamped on here, I'm not sure where it was, but there is also a note that says what section of the cemetery he was in. Okay, where he's buried. It also tells me that he was in the Navy right here. Okay, and it also tells me his wife's name because she signed for this. This is Alice Kuzola. Okay, and notice what it says for the notice what it says for the address. Same address, 5640 South Throop Street, Chicago, Illinois. Okay, so Gus and his family were living at that address, and now Alice and Mickey's family were living at that address. And it turns out other members of the family were also there, as well as my paternal grandmother, my father's mother. So they were all there. I finally did find my father in a muster roll for the ship that was shipping out from where he was at the time. Now he was stationed in the Navy at in Alaska. This is the name of his ship right here. He was on the Spica, the USS Spica, S-P-I-C-A. AK-16 is the number of the ship. It's its identification number. I found that out. It tells when he's shipped out, and it also said that he's shipping out from Kiska, Alaska. He was in Attu and Kiska, and he was shipping out to sea. Okay, so it gives you that information about whoever was there. So as you look it up, also over to the side, you do see that they gave me his service number as well, right over here. Okay, and so here we go with add a correction. If you did have to add a correction, they do give you the opportunity to do that. Okay, and once again, seeing how things are connected. I took that both spellings of the name Kuzola, Kuczala, and Kuzola, and tried Google. And I did a Google search for Illinois with the Kuzola, and got more information on that one than I did with the Kuczala. So going from this, I went forward and I found information on Maxine Kuzzola's obituary. Maxine Kuzzola was the wife of Mickey's son. Okay, so let's go back just a minute. Mickey is the one that we saw the gravestone marker for. Okay, so he was the one that got killed. Mickey and his wife Alice, right before he died, had just had a son, Michael. So Michael married Maxine. Okay, so there's Maxine. So Maxine passed away in December 2003. Actually, the obituary was in 2000, December 1st, 2003. She passed away in November. And this is, if you note, it says legacy.com. Legacy.com right here. If you've ever looked up any obituaries for anyone online, they send you to legacy.com. Legacy.com tends to manage obituaries. This is not the same as legacyfamilytree.com. I will mention, and I did mention Legacy Family Tree a couple of times throughout the presentation and in your handouts that you're going to get. It will say legacyfamilytree.com. Make sure you put the family tree part in, otherwise you're just going to get obituaries. But legacy.com does, as I said, do obituaries. I went to this and it took me to this, which was through legacy.com. And it only gave me a little piece of information, but it did tell me the name of the newspaper where the full obituary could be found. So I went a little bit further and I did some digging on Family Search and found information again for Maxine. And it did say that this was an obituary and it was in the Herald and Review, and they were able to connect me to the Decatur Herald and Review. So I was able to get the full obituary to see that. Now, up at the top in the yellow box, notice that I did say for obituaries, you can always go to your newspaper archives. Newspapers do have their own archives, and usually you can go back into them to find older obituaries. Also, ancestry.com, familysearch.org, legacy.com, which is the one that we were on just a minute ago. But also you'll notice Genealogy Bank and News Bank, and I have a star next to those because those have loads of information, but they are paid subscriptions. So they do have a lot available, but they are paid subscriptions. So you do have to just be aware of that. Okay, now I went a little bit further with that address that we came up with, the 5640 South Throop Street. I was curious as to whether or not it still existed. I'm not planning to go to Chicago anytime soon, so I figured this would be the next best thing. I went to Google Maps. Remember, we said to use Google and some of your other search engines to help you out. Well, Google Maps helped me out with this one. I plugged in the information that I had for the address. And yes, 5640 South Throop Street does indeed still exist. It showed me on the map where it is, and it gave me some street side pictures. Now, the street view, I'm sure some of you have seen the camera cars going around from Google with all the cameras. They will do a 360. degree set of pictures, and you can see the area, you can see the street and so forth. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. But 5640 Throop Street. So, well, addresses can change, locations can change, names of streets can change. I wonder if it really is the same building, the same house. So I went a little bit further. Okay, I had a picture of my Uncle Mickey. This is Maxine's father-in-law that passed away in the accident. And this is Mickey when he was at home, probably on leave. You'll notice that he's in his whites. Okay, so I'm assuming he was home on leave. He did come home right after the birth of Michael Jr., and we have pictures of him holding the baby. So I'm guessing this was right around that time. So I have a guess on the date as to 1943. That's just a guess, but I'm guessing that that's when it was. And here he is on the steps of 5640 Throop Street in Chicago. I know that it's 5640 because zooming in, I was able to see that right here it does say 5640. Okay, so knowing that, what about the next, the picture that I just looked at? Is it the same? And the giveaway here is basically the brickwork. Do you see the really patterned brickwork that they have? It's very unique. And it is actually the same house. And looking closer at this, there's the 5640 right there on the door jamb. So we do know that it is the same house. So if I ever do get to Chicago, it's going to be one of my side trips. I'm definitely going to stop by and see the house where my dad's family grew up. Okay, so make sure that you look for tutorials, tips, etc. On Google, YouTube. These are places where, that's just a start. You're going to find podcasts, you're going to find message boards and blogs and so forth. And don't forget, as I said, Google Maps, make sure. And also, a lot of people use Facebook to try to just connect with other people with their same surname and find out if perhaps there is a connection there. So that's also something that you don't want to discount. Okay, now I mentioned our library's YouTube channel and the 7-part series that we have. We called Using the Library and the Internet in Your Family History Research. This is a breakdown of how that is laid out. And when you get to part 5, you will notice that it's actually broken into an A and B because it's 10 websites, and it would have been too long to just put all 10 in one. So we have 5 and 5. When you get your handouts, this will be on there, so you will be able to see it. You don't have to write it down, okay? But I do encourage you to do that because we're just doing a touch on some of these today and just getting a quick intro. So it would be helpful to go through more detail on some of the things that are here. Okay, so I'm going to go live to the internet now so that we can actually take a look at some of these. Okay, and I'm going to start off on our library's website. Okay, Mercer County Library's website is mcl.org. So if you wanted to follow along with that, you can. mcl.org. All right, from our library's home page. Okay, I want to call your attention up here to these little icons that we have up in the upper left corner. You see as I'm mousing over them, they're lighting up. The first one is where you would find our blog. Okay, and you'll see the little blog logo there. So that little icon for our blog, remember we said it was February 7th, 2020 is the one that I mentioned on history databases. So that might be helpful to you. Okay, we also have a link to our Facebook page, Goodreads, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and there's our YouTube channel. Okay, so we will go back to that in toward the end of class. Okay, following down though, you will see in this menu bar right across here, okay, the one that we want is called Resources. Now, from Resources, if you go down, if you move down into this area, you'll see Biography, Genealogy, and History. Okay, that's the one that we're going to click on, and it will bring you to this page right here. Biography, Genealogy, and History. Okay, now everything is arranged in alphabetical order, so we do have to scroll down a bit to get to Ancestry. Ancestry Library is right here. Okay, and I'm going to keep scrolling just a little bit to show you where Heritage Quest is once again. Okay, alphabetical order, so there's Heritage Quest. Okay, so both of them are going to be accessible from the same location. Okay, now, always more than one way to do things. Okay, there is a link. Notice the hand-shaped cursor that tells us that we have a link. So you can come over here to ancestry.com library edition, or you can go right here where it says go to the database external link. So if I click on that, I'm going to get to a page where it's going to ask me for my barcode. And I don't remember whether it asks you for a password, but it will ask you for a barcode. Now, some of the databases will, before they ask you for the barcode, ask you to select a library. So if they do that, go there first. I can't show you that because I already have an account and it won't come up for me to just do it to show you. So if you were asked for your library, scroll through the list, find your library, and then put in the barcode. So it has to be the barcode for that library that you selected. Okay. Okay, see, it did not come up for me. So that's what I was afraid of. Okay, so once you put in your barcode, this is what you're going to get. Okay, it will come up again. And Ancestry Library, once again, you have ancestrylibrary.com. We have a link right here, so I can click on that. And notice before you do that, if you wanted to look over the tips that are here, there are some tips which I think are helpful, so you might want to do that. You also have another link here that says go to ancestrylibrary.com. So again, more than one way to get there. Okay, and this is the same page that I showed you a little earlier, only this time we are going to actually do a search so that you can see how that does work. Notice across the top, I wanted to just show this to you in a little bit more detail. We are on the home page right now, and you do have a lot of jumping off places, a lot of quick links and shortcuts for census, vital records, military, immigration, all of those. Remember that receive records home. We are going to see that coming up because you will see that on pages when you find something, so do watch for that. All right, if I click on the search on the menu bar right here, notice I have all categories. I have census and voter lists, which would narrow it down. Birth, marriage, death, military, immigration and travel, and card catalog. One note about the mention of, go back here and see, no, I can't get it. I can't use my selection tool and my pen at the same time. So let me just go back and just point to it then. If you see that it says immigration and travel, immigration, yes, when people were first coming in, but they also had a lot of ship records where people were just traveling. So they had already come in, they're here, but then they went back to another country, okay, another ocean voyage back. And that could have been just for pleasure to visit relatives, or it could have been bringing another group of people back with them. Okay, so that was often considered travel. So be aware of that. When you see card catalog is referring to a lot of different topics. They call it the card catalog, but it's different topics. When you see collections over on the right here when we mention new collections that are updated, it's going to be referring to that card catalog. Okay, message boards, I just wanted to point to that and show you. Again, we said that message boards are going to be very subjective. You put in your information that you're looking for, and you can go to categories if you'd like, but if you're looking for a specific topic, you can put in a name or a topic, and that will help there. Okay, the Learning Center is going to have aids for you to help you out, research aids, uh, as noted here for getting started census beyond basics, and there's different topics under there that are helpful. Immigration, military, ethnic groups, and so forth. So a lot of information there as far as helping you. These are the research aids that are going to help you. They're things to get you started on those tips, tutorials, and so forth. Maps we had mentioned before. If you needed a map of somewhere in the United States, it's there, but there's also maps that are available for other parts of the world as well. Okay, so let's go back where we have charts and forms is our next one on the menu bar, and this is where I mentioned the ancestral chart or family tree. Right here where we have ancestral chart, that is the brackets that I mentioned. There they are. So you can download it, you can print it out, save it, whatever you need to do. But there's a lot of others as well. The ancestral chart is very good. If you had to do correspondence, and this can include any phone calls that you make, any emails that you make, if you want to keep track of that, a correspondence record on a particular topic might be helpful. That family group sheet that I mentioned is here, so that you could construct the information and keep track of the information for a particular part of your family, particular grouping. Now over here next to charts and forms, there's something called census forms. Now I mentioned that you're going to be using the census quite a bit for your research, and census forms are going to help you see what those census records look like very, very clearly. Now, this is important because a lot of times when they did the digital changeover, things got a little blurry or maybe very, very tiny. And even if you enlarge, sometimes you can't figure it out. So let's say, for example, I wanted to look at the US Census for 1930. I think it'll come up. There we go. And the US Census for 1930, Ancestry has done a very nice job of showing you what this looks like. And I think I can do this. Let me see. Here we go. If I needed to see those very tiny um, headings. Do you see how I can enlarge that so that I can see it, or I can print it out? And this would be a lot easier to see than if I were trying to see it on the actual primary source that we mentioned. There we go. Okay, and let me just go back on this just a bit. Okay, so that's our charts and forms. And as I mentioned, new collections, that's going to show you anything in the card catalog that has recently been added or recently updated. I'm going to go back to search on the menu bar, and I'm going to go to all categories. So I just want to show you how this works. If I wanted to narrow things down, I could do it here. I could say I wanted a particular state. If I wanted someplace in another country, I can go here along the bottom of the map and say I wanted to look just in Africa or just in Europe or just in South America, and it would narrow it down. Okay, I'm just going to use my search fields up at the top, and I'm going to look for my mother. Okay, so I'm going to type in her maiden name. First name is Olive. Last name, D-O-U-G. Whoops, wait a minute. I have to spell it right. Let me go back. Okay. D-O-U-G-L-A-S-S. Okay, now my mother's family spelled their last name with two S's, and then at some point they dropped an S. So I'm going to put in two S's and see what happens. And if we have to change it, we will, but we'll see what happens with two S's. Where would our ancestor have lived? Okay, she lived in Seabright, New Jersey. So I'm going to put in Seabright. And as soon as I type in Seabright, you'll see it comes up with a little drop down and it prompts me, Seabright, Monmouth County, New Jersey, USA. I'm going to click on that and it puts it in for me. I am not going to add her birth year. I'm just going to give the bare information that I have. Just put that much in and I'm going to say search. And we're going to see what happens. Okay, now up at the top, you'll see that I'm showing right away, it's showing me 1 through 20, results 1 through 20 of 27,801. Now, chances are that all 27,000 plus are not going to be my mother, but we will definitely find some that are for her. In fact, if I look over here, I see 1930 US federal census. Okay, when I mouse over that, it shows me the transcription. Okay, all right, I'm just going to mouse over the next one. This is 1920. Again, it shows me the transcription. Now, when I look over to the right, I will see that it does say Olive L. Douglas, birthplace, New Jersey, residence 1930 is Seabright, New Jersey. So I have pretty much guessed that this is the right person. Okay, now in order to see the image, I have here a little link that says view image. And if I click on that, I'm going to get to the primary source. If I click on where it says 1930 US federal census, if I click on that, I'm going to get what's popping up over here. You'll see that. Okay, and it will come down here and it will give you this. And this can be printed out, and you'll see right here it says print and also send document. So we have two choices. We can print it out, we can send the document home. Also, as well as from the original list that you just saw, I can also view that primary source right here. So I'm going to click on that. Okay, and you'll see what I mean as far as being able to transcribe this and what it looks like. Uh, it was very difficult for people who are transcribing and doing these transcriptions of ship manifests and you know, census records, because the enumerator, the person who wrote the information down, may or may not have had good handwriting. That person may or may not have been good at figuring out how to spell people's names. I mentioned that we had Douglas with one S and two S's, but I also found it spelled Dougles, and that was the enumerator that wrote it down that way. So here you'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people in this grouping. Along the edge, I have New Street, and that's the name of the street that they lived on at the time. You'll see the person that I requested, Olive, is in yellow. The other members of the family are in green. And it tells you things like how they were related to each other. So the head of the house, the wife, the daughter, the son. Did they rent or did they own? Okay, in the next question. Um, and as you go across, where was the person born? Where was the father or mother of that person born? Also, in some of the census records, not every year ask the same questions, but some of them ask things like what languages did those people speak? One interesting one that I found interesting was how many windows does your house have? Another one is do you live on a farm? That's a question. In the 1940 census, which is the most recent one that we have that was released, uh, it asked, where were you living? Were you living in the same place in 1935? And that was because of the Great Depression. They were trying to see how much transience there was as far as where people lived. Were you still in the same house or did you move? And with a lot of people, because of the economic circumstances, they did have to move because of jobs and so forth. All right, so anyway, you can see that it also had my grandfather's uh, occupation, and you'll notice when I mouse over things, it does pop up and tell you what the category is. There it is, occupation driver, okay? And over here, if you moused over things, it will tell you, I think it tells you age. Let's see. Yeah, age 41 and so forth. My mother at this time was age 15. Okay, so you can see that even if you can't read what was all the way at the top, and this is important too, especially if you're scrolling down, if you're way down here, you may not see the heading. And it's good to know that it does tell you birthplace, Virginia in this case. You can see that what the heading was up there. Okay, and it does pop them up at the top as well. Okay, let me get back out of this. Okay, all right, so you can see that this is what comes up when you do type in that information, and do pay attention to the information that you do have, because as I mentioned, not everybody is going to uh, be your relative just because they have the same name. Okay, for example, I have one here, the 1900 census, and it's the same name, but the date of birth is way off, 1887. Okay, that's way off. And where did she live? Cape May. Okay, so there's a lot of different things there. But as you scroll through, you'll be able to see. In this particular case, it came up with census records first. If you keep going, you might find marriage, birth, death certificates, and so forth. Social Security Death Index is one that usually has a lot of good information. Okay, so this was our ancestry. Okay, let's see if I can get to Heritage Quest here. There we go. Heritage Quest Online, also from the library's website, as I mentioned, through the link there. And again, this is going to be available anytime, anywhere. So you don't have to worry about that expiring. But it's going to work a lot very much the same way as Ancestry, with the information that you're going to look for, that you're going to put in, what's going to be available, and so forth. Okay, I did want to show you Find a Grave. I mentioned if you didn't have a chance to go to a cemetery that you could still get information. So I'm going to put in some information here for my great-grandfather. Okay, we're going to use 1S this time. Okay, in the cemetery location, I'm just going to put in New Jersey, in case I didn't know where in New Jersey he was buried. Okay, and let's just see what happens. Okay, and I get 2 Clarence Douglases, and the one that I want is Clarence W. Douglas, because I know that he's in the Mount Olivet Cemetery. There's also a Clarence Oliver Douglas that's in Riverview Cemetery in Trenton. Okay, so I want Clarence Douglas here, so I'm going to click on the link, and notice it has a date of birth, a date of death, and the cemetery. Okay, and once I click on that, I see not only the picture of the stone, but I also have a lot of other information here. Now, with Find a Grave, Find a Grave depends on people to give them information, to share information with them. And the information can be from a relative, or it can be from someone who just does this as a hobby. And this is the case that we had right here. I reached out to the person who put this on because I wanted to see if it was a relative, and the person got back to me and said, no, I just do it as a hobby, and I go around and take pictures of stones, and then I try to match them up with the obituaries that are printed in newspapers, and he actually did do that. You'll see that it does say Red Bank Register. There's the obituary as far as where that was located. So if I wanted to go back and find it, I could. But some of the information that he did post here was from that. So that was helpful. Also, I did find some information that I thought would be helpful to him, and a few things that he had incorrectly stated. So I reached out to him with that, and he actually provided, it says additional information provided by me. So he gave me credit for the information that I did add to his listing. So I thought that that was pretty cool. Okay, one more. Cindy's List is a kind of a conglomerate. It's a portal for lots of other places to visit. Cindy has taken many, many websites and categorized them so that you can find what you're looking for. It's all alphabetized. So if you were looking for something, for example, let's see, on Poland. So if I went to Poland right here, there's 396, and watch out because there's lots of ads, okay? So ads are going to pop up with um, things that are free, okay? You are going to have to put up with ads, so pay attention so that you're not clicking on something that's an ad. But anyway, if I were to go here and then click, there's a lot of different breakdowns and other links here that take me to more and more and more. So it's very well organized and it's very helpful. But Cindy's List is, I found it very helpful to get to different websites, and she's checked these out. All right, so let me move from this and let me come back here to some quotes. Okay, so okay, I'd like to leave you not only with some quotes, but also a few thoughts from myself as a novice, because I am not a professional genealogist, but I just do it as a hobby and I have a lot of fun with it. Do remember to remain optimistic and open-minded with anything that you're doing during your search, because you never know where it's going to go. You never know where it's going to lead. You're always going to find something, but it may not be what you were looking for, but you are going to find something. Also, try to keep a balance between the structure of your search and where it leads. And this is what I was talking about going off on tangents. Sometimes those tangents can get you so far afield that you don't even remember where you were. So try to rein it in a little bit. Keep track of where you are. Try to pay attention to what you're clicking on. So if you need to duplicate anything that you've done, you have a way to get back to it. Also be ready for surprises because you just never know what you're going to find. It's a very personal journey. It's a treasure hunt. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. So really, I do suggest that you enjoy the journey. Okay, so I would like to thank you for attending. Okay, remember that you can replay this recording on our library's YouTube channel. And I did want to take you back there and I forgot. So I will step back for just a minute to do that. This is the little button that is our YouTube um, icon. And also, usually our classes have downloadable handouts, but for this particular one, I am going to be sending it out to you. Okay, so let me just get back out of this for just a moment and get you back here to our library's homepage because I did want to show you where a few things are. Um, Under resources, okay, if we go to resources again, okay, I'm sorry, services, excuse me, services, and we go to computer instruction, okay, and click on that. Okay, this is where you're going to go to sign up for any other computer classes that you might be interested in. So this is a resource for you. We have lots of other classes throughout each month, so I am doing a little promo for that. So we hope to see you in some of our other classes. Now going back up to the top here where I mentioned all of these little icons, I mentioned the blog, and over here we have YouTube. So let's click on YouTube. Okay, and when you get to the YouTube channel for Mercer County Library, you're going to click on playlists. And then once you are in playlists, we're going to find computer instruction. Here it is. And we're going to click on view full playlist because we want to see everything. Okay, now once you get to this, you are going to have to do a little bit of scrolling because the newest ones come up down toward the bottom. And so you will have to scroll a little bit, but here we go, Family History Part 1. There's our series. And unfortunately, they did not come through in order, so you're going to have to do a little bit of hunting through this. And notice, as I said, they do come in with the newest toward the bottom. So for today's session, you will find it toward the bottom. So you will have to do a little bit of scrolling down there to get to that. Okay. All right, let me go back to where we were. Okay. All right. And as I mentioned, sign up for some more classes. And one that I want to mention in particular is the fact that we have new private sessions that we offer every Friday, or most Fridays. We offer 20-minute individualized sessions. So especially if you have questions on family history, this would be a great use of this time period to do that. Anything, whether it's help with a tech device, a project that you're doing, anything like that, I would encourage you to sign up for it. But of course, since we're doing family history, obviously you might want to spend some time doing something with that. So if you have questions on any of the databases that we talked about today, getting started with those, any of your own questions about your own work, if I can help you out with that, I'd be glad to. So that's a good use of that time. I have our email addresses up here, so we will be stopping the recording shortly, but the email addresses will stay up here so that you can copy that down if you do need to. I am going to stop recording shortly, and then I will be turning off my webcam and my microphone, but both Keith and I will still be here to answer questions if you have any. So again, thank you for coming and have a very good day. Stay safe.